Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell in the upper right hand corner. Follow me on all forms of social media. Check me out at thatdrummerguy.com and enjoy the following presentation.
Hey, is this Josh?
Yes, it is.
What's up, man? It's Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking time to do this interview.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. I'm happy to do it, for sure. I appreciate the interest.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, being a fan of your work over the years and the incredible 2018 that you're having so far, it's awesome for you to be able to take the time about everything that you got going on right now.
Oh, dude, thanks, man. That's nice to hear. I appreciate that, for sure. And definitely my pleasure, man. I always assume that I'm flying very, very much under the radar, so it's pretty cool, man. It's flattering that you're even, the slightest bit familiar with what I do. That's cool.
Oh, and likewise. I mean, the pleasure's all mine. I mean, like, just from discovering your work and, just like all the projects that you got going on right now. I mean, whether it's touring or releasing new music or whatever the case is. I mean, this is something I've wanted to do for quite a while. So, I mean, it's great to be able to have a great occasion like this, like... for example, this Saturday, seeing you being able to play in Somerset, Wisconsin for Northern Invasion, and of course all the touring that you got going on with that, it's going to be a great feeling to be able to tour behind a new album for A Perfect Circle.
Oh, it is, man. It definitely is. That's cool. You're going to be up there. I didn't know you'd be there.
Oh, yeah. I'm just right around a half hour away, and I just found out last week that I was going, so yeah, I mean, this will be the first time I get to see you play live, so it's going to be a really cool experience.
Oh, man, I'm jotting stuff down.
I am recording it, but I can always take out anything that needs to be taken out, or whatever the case is. Nothing's live or anything, but I am recording it.
Okay, yeah, awesome, dude. I didn't know if I needed to actually tone down my cussing or whatever.
Well, that's quite all right. I mean, whatever feels natural to come out, I mean, absolutely. Feel free to be yourself.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't know if this was going to be like a Nickelodeon publication or, what's going on here. Yeah, man, I'm happy you're going to be there. It's exciting that the record's doing really well and that the band is embarking on quite a bit of touring this year and getting to go overseas and do all the big American festivals. That's always a real hoot, man.
Yeah, and
so we're pretty pumped about it.
And what is that like for you to, I mean, finally after all these years with the new Perfect Circle album, what's it like to be able to start to incorporate some new music into the fold?
I think it's cool, man. It's breathing kind of a new life into the band, dynamically speaking. You just never know how songs are going to feel until you actually get in a room with everyone and assess, tones and parts and dynamics and all that stuff. And then, a notch above that is when you actually get on stage and you see how everything feels after you've incorporated these songs into the set list. And I think it's adding a lot of depth to the set. Of course, there's a lot of very dynamic songs that are already off of the first few records or whatever, but this record in particular, it seems like it explores even more boundaries than before. There's a lot of really pretty piano stuff that's been nice to incorporate. I think it makes the quiet, memorable moments really special, and then the usual upper register dynamic moments, I think it makes them that much more impactful. Not to say that the whole record is kind of a soft dynamic, because of course there's songs like Talk Talk and Doomed and songs such as those where it's in the upper register, and they seem to have translated great live as well.
Yeah, and that's what's making me excited for this weekend, too. I mean, of course, with it being my first time being able to see the band live, and, it's great to see, like, the rejuvenation of the band that's going on. That always happens every time that there's a new album that comes out, and just seeing how everything's going to be going together. I mean, as far as like the live show, what the set list is going to be, the order of how things are going to be. And I just imagine, you know, just like with all the material that's going on with that. I mean, just like you said, with how diverse the album is, I mean, that's going to be really fun for the drum perspective to be able to go from like some of the heavier moments that have been incorporated in previous albums into more of the atmospheric stuff that's going on now.
Yeah, I agree. You know, whether I played on something or didn't, the songs themselves just, you know, are a lot of fun, man. You know, it's if I'm playing a groove that I had worked on or that someone else had played, you know, it only makes you a better player, and ultimately, yeah, there's just a different kind of depth to this record, and the feels and the dynamics and stuff that definitely are going to make it pretty fun. We've had a really good time the last couple of weeks, but the tour that was, you know, it was kind of like a little mini run that was based around Coachella and doing Jimmy Kimmel. So just getting those shows under our belt, I think really, really helped, man. I think we got a good taste of what's working in the set list and how we're going to transition into stuff. And it was cool, man. It's really going to help us moving forward. We got that under our belt, and there's far less question marks happening now. You know, it's going to be a good time for sure.
Yeah, and I can imagine, especially when you start incorporating new songs from a new album, that there's always going to be that question of what's going to work out live and how you're going to be able to transpose these songs live. But I'm glad to see, you know, just like after a few weeks in and like those incredible experiences that you just got done talking about, you know, just like being able to play on Jimmy Kimmel and, you know, playing at Coachella and, you know, just like getting all these moments out there. I mean, now that a lot of those bigger events are out of the way, you're able to relax a bit more and really be able to just enjoy the songs.
That's it, man. That's it. I enjoy kind of the pressure cooker situations that are, you know, basically in line with playing Coachella and TV shows. And TV shows in particular, you only get one crack at it, you know? You can't, it's not like a studio where, of course, you want to put your best foot forward each take and try to knock it out and have that cool raw energy right off the bat and nail it in the first take or two. There's beauty in that, but you can also go over things over and over and over and fine tune things in the studio and you know, even live shows or whatever. I mean, everybody makes mistakes and whatnot, and they're a little bit more masked, if you will, in an arena or festival setting. But you know, the TV show thing is you're under the microscope, it's filmed, you get one crack at it, so it better be damn good, you know? And then high pressure festivals and stuff, I like that. I like to be in those situations and thrive. I think it brings the best out of musicians in general.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I know that was the case in my situation a couple weeks ago. I was under a situation where I was doing some recording, and I was like, okay, you got one take left, and hopefully you get it right. And, you know, just having that pressure of like, okay, you only got one chance to be able to do this, make it the best that you possibly can. At least for me, it does light that fire underneath you to be able to just make it for the best possible take that you possibly can. And, you know, it's great to be able to see that with the level that you're at right now, with the music that you're playing, all of these high prospect places that you're able to do and everything like that, you do have that pressure under control, and you're able to just be yourself and be able to make the live show as best as that you can possibly be.
That's it, man. I think that the more experience you gain in those particular situations, the easier it becomes to just relax and do the best job you can. Just put your best foot forward and get the job done. You know, ultimately, at the end of the day, and I tell my students this too, it's just music, you know? Any other pressure that you're feeling is pretty much pressure that you're putting on yourself, you know? Of course, like in you know, Coachella type of environment, or just a big festival or TV show environment. It's like I said before, it's a bit of a pressure cooker, but it is what you make of it, right? As long as I try not to kind of, you know, let that pressure that everybody feels in those situations turn into some kind of weird nervousness or stress. If I ever feel anything along those lines at all, I just kind of take deep breaths and work on basically translating that into just excitement, adrenaline. know, anything that feels like nerves to me, I can honestly say is just adrenaline, and then I use it to my advantage.
And that is so fantastic to hear that too. I mean, of course, you know, in particular with the Perfect Circle, and of course, the amazing work that you do with your other band, the Beta Machine. I mean, it's great to see that you are able to take that adrenaline and, you know, just make for those live shows, and, you know, just make the drums really stand out when they need to, make them subtle when they need to, and, you know, just have fun with that live show. And it's great to see whether you're doing a headlining show or you're part of a huge festival like Coachella or something like this Saturday where you're going to be playing in Somerset, Wisconsin, you know, just like being able to adapt to all these different situations and just be yourself. It's so cool to see that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
And with that, I mean, do you feel anything different at all, like when you are in like a headlining situation as compared to like a Coachella where you're not the main event? I mean, is there any kind of like pressure for that for you at all?
No, I don't think there's any pressure. To me, a show is a show. There's a difference in energy as far as the energy that you're getting from a crowd. Sometimes at festivals such as Coachella, you're looking at a crowd that's discovering you. Of course, there's people that go to those festivals to see you, but there's also people just kind of floating around, man. They could be coming from, they could be frying on acid and like, you know, stumbling upon your set, you know, and not really knowing who you are and getting into what you're doing. Or they literally just walk right by you on the way to something else. I just put my best foot forward and make sure that I'm pushing all the air that I need to push and just staying in control of the music that I'm playing. It's always really cool to have people discover you and being in those situations, but ultimately nothing really changes for me. It's fun to be in front of a crowd where you know that they're there for you. It's a dedicated crowd, and you can sense that, and you know what you're getting yourself into just based off of their reaction to the music, you know?
Oh, yeah, and, you know, it's amazing to be in that position where you are right now, where you are able to have that feeling of people discovering your music, like at Coachella, like coming up at Northern Invasion coming up on Saturday, or any other festival gigs that would be coming up for a Perfect Circle, where people who may be familiar with the band but not entirely familiar, and then you go up on stage and they get to hear you and they're discovering some brand new music, but at the same time you got those lifelong dedicated fans that have loved every release that has come out. They're going to check you out again, and they're seeing you guys promote the brand new album and in a live setting, and it's great to be able to have that kind of situation where you can have both the best of both worlds.
It's definitely not going to hurt the band at all. It can only help us. It can only help us make new fans, you know, as people discover the music, whether it's a music video on YouTube or they hear a song on the radio or they stumble upon us like we were mentioning before. It's not going to hurt us for sure. And then, you know, maybe they'll enjoy some of the back catalog too. So definitely a win-win at the end of the day.
And speaking of that, of course, with the new album and everything else that's going on, have you changed your setup at all when it comes to a Perfect Circle, as far as like your drum setup?
I've kept things pretty much the same the entire time I've been in the band since 2011. Some of the changes that I've made, I've just kind of been messing around with some side snares. Like, for example, right now I'm using an old 1940s World War II style field drum, like a WFL.
Oh, wow.
I think it's a 14 by 14. I did have a different 40s WFL that I was using that's like a 16 by 16, but this 14 just kind of beat it out. I use that at the end of Counting Bodies. It's just an interesting snare that has a lot of depth. No crack, really. I just wanted something that was vibey, that had a lot of spread, and we kind of just improvised and kind of messed around with that outro and kind of developed it in 2011. And so I like using that snare for that. And then I have a Superphonic, a 5x14 that I use for all the other songs that have side snare. For songs like, blue, I kind of strike it like it's a timbali. I rim shot it. For songs like The Noose and People Are People, I go dead center on it and use it as, you know, just this nice, pretty side snare where I get, you know, nice buzz rolls or five strokes, 6 strokes, drags, buzzes, things of that nature, going dead center on it. And a little less than a year ago, I picked up a nickel over brass 1930s 5x14 Ludwig. I think it's a 6-lug, and that thing has a lot of character too. So I've just been kind of messing around with that, and then I have Rogers Dynasonic 70s snare. That's a 5x14. Just switching them out, man. Just kind of having fun with my drum tech and letting him pick what's up there. You know, like, oh, I guess I'm playing this drum tonight. I was using some K crash rides. I use 4 crashes in the band. That way, if I'm doubling up on big dynamic sections, I can hit 2 at a time. If I had 3 crashes and I was double crashing and stuff, one would be flopping around all the time, and it's a little bit harder to control in the heat of the battle. But I found by having 4, it was a little easier to double crash going from one set to the next. And I had a Zildjian K crash rides at 21 and 22, and they just recently came out with the Avitas 21 and 22 crash rides, and those things are like butter. They're a little bit more in line with where my ears are, where I basically want those crashes to be just a touch darker, a little bit thinner, so they're a little bit more kind of shimmery. But I still use a Black Beauty. I still use a classic maple Ludwig kit, 13, 16, 18, 18 by 22 kick. So everything's pretty much the same except for those things I just described.
Yeah, and, you know, again, it's great to be able to have those kind of different flavors that you are able to switch out. I mean, especially when it comes into the snares and, you know, like with the cymbals, too. I mean, it's great to see that you do have those kind of crash rides that are going on there as well, because I've always noticed, like, when you get into the bigger territories, like, it can always start to sound a little gongy, so the fact that you are able to get those kind of Zildjian crashes where it does have a little more shimmer to it, I mean, I just imagine live it's just going to sound amazing.
Yeah, they definitely just knocked it out of the park with the new Avitas line. The K crash rides are great too. I still really like them, just for a slightly thicker sound. They're still like butter as well. It's just kind of a personal preference, and little by little, as you get to know your cymbals, you know how to strike them and how to feather them and draw the sound out. Even at my top dynamic range, when I'm trying to push as much air as possible and destroy everything in front of me to transfer that energy to the band, I'm still drawing the sound out of the cymbals. And just ironically, I really don't break very many cymbals because of it. You know, like hitting them at a glance and drawing the sound out just, to me, is the best way to strike a cymbal, and you just get the truest sound out of it anyways. You just go straight down into the ground, then you're just jackhammering the cymbals, and you're going to get a lot of attack and less body.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, and that's exactly the way I play my cymbals as well. It's just doing with that glancing blow rather than just like a striking down like a hammer, because you do get more musical overtones when you do hit it at a glance. And I mean, I can understand, you know, just like for some purposes being able to like hammer down and stuff like that, but you're also saving your cymbals as well, and you can get a lot more life out of them and being able to keep that life going when you play it right and you get that glancing feel to it.
I agree, definitely.
So, you know, with that too, I mean, of course, not just focusing on A Perfect Circle, you also got another amazing band with the Beta Machine, and of course, being able to promote your debut EP going on with that. How has the reception been for it so far?
You know what? It's been really good. You always want to put yourself out there as much as possible with your own baby. And Matt McJunkins and I, he's my partner in crime in the band. We had that EP done for a while, but then we both just were touring machines. We worked with. I've been working with Pussa for, we both did for a long time. Then we joined Eagles of Death Metal together. We had APC stuff going on. We were both doing sessions and was teaching and doing clinics and things of that nature, and we kept kind of delaying the game, you know, just going, okay, let's put it out when we have time to tour it. And there was never the greatest time to put it out. So we just decided, you know, screw it, man. Let's put this thing out. We'll play behind it as much as we can. And, you know, it's an EP. At the end of the day, you get a little bit less traction and longevity touring behind an EP with the advertising and marketing perspective too than you do with an LP. So, I mean, it served its purpose to kind of put us on the map and show people that we're a serious band, and we've got some nice reactions from it. And, you know, at this point, we've been working really hard on new music and have a lot of really cool announcements coming up that we're going to make here really, really soon regarding new material. And we're going to play many more shows, and Billy Maynard from Perfect Circle were kind enough last year to invite us to the party, and we did a 6-week fall run opening up for APC, doing arenas, and that really helped us out a lot, cutting our teeth on a huge stage like that. We went from being a baby band with a solid EP release and, you know, playing smaller clubs like Viper Room and Satellite in LA, places of that nature, and really only getting out of town and playing a few other cities, to, you know, jumping all over the States, including a little bit in Canada. I think we did Toronto, and just gripping and ripping for 6 weeks, man. It made us up the ante with our production, the way that we played as a band. We really gelled more and got experience cutting our teeth on a huge stage. It made us a completely different band because of it.
Yeah, that was so great. I mean, I remember when the announcement came out for that, and it was so cool to be able to see that you were going to be able to be in that kind of situation where you could just go from like playing the smaller clubs to get into these huge places and really get the name out there. And every time that I come across like someone posting the video or something like a music video or posting about the EP or whatever that is, almost always I see it's because they discovered you guys from that touring last year, and it's great to be able to see that connection is still going on.
Oh man, it helped a lot. That's one of those things, Matt and I discuss it occasionally. It's hard to put your finger on just how much a tour helps you. You know, it's one of those intangible things where you don't know. You know, you don't have like a book on it. There are no like appropriate statistics that you can point your finger to, but it definitely helped a lot. You know, you can see it in social media numbers and people's interactions, like you said, just people posting and tagging us and going, hey, like, love this video, or you know, commenting on a photo, a performance photo that we put up online from a show that we played opening up for APC. It helped a lot, man. We're very grateful to those guys to let us warm the stage up and then jump right back on it with a different shirt on and do it all again with them.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask about that. I mean, how does that feel to be able to switch it up like that? You know, like going from the Beta Machine all the way over to APC in that kind of situation.
I enjoyed it, man. It felt like, you know, obviously a different environment, and the stakes are a little higher, even though I don't really think of it that way. Like, we're, you know, to go back to what we're talking about with pressure and stuff, I don't really, but it's cool, man. You know, when I was in college, I went to the University of Arizona, and I would get there early in the morning and have orchestral lessons and drum set lessons, and then go to the Caribbean Ensemble and play drum set for that rehearsal, and then wind ensemble rehearsal, and then the jazz big band, and then recording jazz quartet recordings and things of that nature. And by the end of the day, you look back at your schedule and you go, holy shit, like I played with 5 different bands, and then I got to go gig tonight or go teach and then rehearse with my hardcore band. You know, like that's just kind of an extension of how I've lived my life, just kind of grinding it out and trying to get better, playing different styles, playing with as many people as possible, trying to pay my bills, so therefore bouncing from a jazz gig to a blues gig to a Cuban gig to a Brazilian group or R&B kind of soul variety thing, and then a passion project like, you know, rock bands that I grew up playing and whatnot. So, I mean, it was a tight schedule for the Beta Machine APC stuff, we'd play behind the scenes, break down our gear as quick as possible because we had just had such a slimmed down situation to make it work. Because we are a baby band, we can't really afford to have a huge staff, you know, with techs and things of that nature. We had a lot of really good help from close friends and APC crew. But we were very, very hands-on. You know, we were shoving drums into cases during the 30-minute changeover while they were, you know, sound checking the APC drums. I was chucking my Beta drums in the cases, running backstage, changing my shirt, running out into the hall, and meeting the rest of the APC guys there, and then walking right up and doing it. As hectic as that was, it was also kind of nice because I just remained warm. So I could go up there and feel like, man, I'm loose. This is cool. I can just jump right into the first song and make it happen and not feel like, you know, tight in any way.
Yeah, I was going to mention that as well. I mean, that's going to be a great feeling. I mean, especially when you're doing an opening set going into a headlining set. I mean, the fact that you were able to sit behind a real kit and be able to play that whole time definitely had to be a great feeling rather than just feeling like you had to like practice on pads or something backstage and just warming up that way. I mean, you got that experience twice in one night like that for that entire tour. I mean, that's going to be a great feeling.
It was cool, yeah. And even when the Beta Machine set was happening and I went up there, it wasn't like I hadn't struck a drum that day because we also had double sound checks every single day. So we'd sound check with APC and, you know, play however many songs we play that day, whether it's 3. Sometimes we'd really get into it and play way more than that. It would just depend on what we were focusing on in that sound check. And then jump off stage and set up all the Beta Machine gear and do a sound check for an hour for that. You know, eat like a quick slim dinner and then start. So it was really like just about every hour of the day was accounted for, which made the days really fly by. Made me take that much better care of myself too. Really had to just, you know, watch my diet and make sure I slept a lot. And it's obviously a pretty physically demanding job in general, but then you add another band into the equation and another sound check and then dealing with the gear on top of that. It can take its toll on you, so I just kind of countered that by taking that much better care of myself, and it works just fine.
Yeah, and I'm
looking forward to doing it again if the opportunity presents itself, whether it's with APC or someone else. You know, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that as well, too. I mean, it's so important to be able to take care of yourself when you're on the road, especially when you're doing double duty like that. And, you know, it's like if you ever do get those opportunities again, I mean, it's great to see that you do have that ability. And, you know, just like with the background that you've had, you know, being able to play all of these different styles. And, of course, you know, for a lot of people knowing you for either a Perfect Circle or a lot more people starting to know you now more for the Beta Machine, or if you just go and play a jazz club or a blues club or just being able to adapt to these different situations. I mean, it's great to see that all of this hard work that you've been able to put into your entire career even before things really started to pick up with all of these things where your entire life is just surrounded by this. I mean, it's so cool to see that you have been able to adapt to these situations and being able to continue on with it.
Thanks, man. It's, you know, when you're in the music business and you get deeper and deeper into it, it doesn't come without its own, you know, struggles and whatnot. And, you know, you learn to kind of be as smooth as possible as you go from one thing to the next. And, of course, you can't always play everything you want to play, every style, every week. I've had to kind of put my jazz sticks down. Of course, I still have fun messing around playing jazz, but man, I haven't played a jazz gig in God knows how long. That's something that I'd like to revisit in my life. Although I feel rusty, I think I would kind of get back into it quickly and have a lot of fun doing it. It's just difficult to make a living playing that style of music unless you really commit yourself to it. And selfishly just play that style. It's difficult to just primarily make a living doing it. And I just kind of found my way. Even when I moved out to Los Angeles in 2004, I told myself, like, don't play rock music. I was just kind of sick of it. I'd never made $1 playing rock at all. growing up in Arizona, although that's what got me playing drums initially, was playing punk and rock. And obviously, like, one of my favorite styles of music, if not my favorite, it's just obviously way up there. It's difficult, man. Just bashing cymbals and heads and sticks and the whole thing. It's the most expensive style to play. So when you're not making any money doing it your whole life, makes you want to put the sticks down for a second with that style. And you know, I grew up making a better living by playing jazz and blues and soul and Latin music and whatnot. So when I came out here, I kind of put my focus on that for about a year or two until the tide just kind of changed. You know, it kind of turned into a situation where I got, you know, an offer to play in one band, and then that led to another thing. Before I knew it, I was getting an audition for Ashes Divide, Billy's solo project. And that was in 2007 when I was auditioning for it. And he chose me to play drums in his band, and from there, recommended me to Maynard for Pussifer, both Matt McJunkins and I, as a rhythm section. And that same year, in 2008, that was when I got the opportunity to play on some of Devo's last record, and that just kind of wasn't my audition for the band, so to speak. So when the record cycle started, I had a lot of opportunities to play live with them. So things just kind of snowballed. Before I knew it, I was looking at my career going, holy shit, I'm playing a ton of rock music, and I'm finally able to pay my bills doing it as long as I keep hustling and juggle it all and keep myself in good shape. So fast forward to a decade later, you know, things, there's an ebb and flow to it all, but things have continued to kind of work out for me in one way or another.
Yeah, and, you know, just getting back into it, you know, just the fact that you were able to adapt to these different situations and, you know, either focus on jazz and blues or the orchestral work that you did in college, or any of the projects that you, or band stuff that you did during that time, you know, the fact that you were able to adapt it into more of a rock setting with, like, all of the different rock projects that you've been a part of over the last decade. And so, you know, it's like, even though you're not necessarily touching all of those genres that you played in the past, it's great to be able to have that, being able to be that diverse and being able to adapt to different situations, because you never know when something's going to really call for something, and it's a great feeling when you know that you can play something like that because you are well versed in it.
For sure. I guess in the moment, you don't think about, oh man, this is a totally different style. You just kind of do it. And then, you know, if I take a step back and look at the styles that each of these bands have, and what their music looks like, you know, the tempos, the feels, all that stuff, each of them definitely are very different. And I think playing different styles growing up, playing in a bunch of different bands, has definitely helped quite a bit. You know, I think if I didn't have that interest as a little kid growing up and wanting to get better and better and make a living doing it, regardless of what the style was, it would be a bit more difficult for me to change hats and do it effortlessly without, you know, giving it any thought. But I guess it's a small testament to my mentality when I was young, and you know, and the musicians that I played with growing up, and all those different bands, and the bands that I continue to play with, you know, like iconic bands like Devo and the styles that they created long before you were even born. I mean, like, if it wasn't for them, you know, that style wouldn't even be what it is. That fusion of punk and electro music, and, you know, it's a very unique style. It's made me a much better player playing with them, and everyone that I play with, I always learn from the people I'm working with.
Yeah, and that's what's so important. I mean, no matter what project that you're a part of, whether you're just filling in, whether you're a full-time member, whether you're doing a guest spot, I mean, whatever the case is, I mean, when you can get into that situation and enjoy all the musicians that you're playing with, writing music that you want to play, playing music that you want to play, whether it's in the studio or on stage or whatever the case is, I mean, trying to have as much fun with it as you can, always trying to learn and always try to become a better musician. I mean, with the vast catalog of bands that you've been a part of, albums that you've gotten to play on, I mean, it's incredible to see how that's continuing on to this day.
Thanks, man. It's a process. I'm going one day at a time, and as things pop up, just tackling them, you know?
Oh, absolutely. So, in speaking of that, I mean, obviously, with how busy things are going on right now, and you did touch on a little bit how there's going to be some upcoming announcements on the horizon for the beta machine. But as far as stuff that's either going to be announced or announced already, what is going on for the rest of the year for you?
Well, lots of VPC touring, but regarding beta machine, we're just kind of sitting tight right now, waiting to see what Matt and I are going to be doing schedule-wise with APC, and then how to work beta machine around that as the Perfect Circle record cycle continues. You know, basically, without giving away too much, we've finished an entire record. We have an LP in the can. It's mixed, mastered. We're really excited about it. We got to explore even more musical ground, some cool realms that we didn't get to explore on the EP. We're just as proud of the EP as we are of this new material. But what we didn't do is we didn't drag any songs from the EP over into this. So it's 10 new songs. We're just trying to find the best time and the best way to release it, making sure that we can actually play shows around it to give it a big fat whirl. You know, one thing we don't want to do is just release stuff and go like, okay, we'll get to the shows, we'll get to the touring. Matt and I are very adamant about the fact that it's not a side project, it's a legitimate band, that we're giving it a big heave-ho and whirl. We want the world to respect it just as much as they respect the other bands that we're in. So we have to be strategic about when we have tours, where we go, who we're playing with, and make sure we're putting our best foot forward. You know, but we're excited, man. We've been working really hard. We kind of have been locked away with our producer, Matt Mitchell, who happens to be Pussifer's producer as well, and he produced the EP with us. Matt and I were locked away with Matt Mitchell since we got off of APC's first tour last year. We played Hollywood Bowl, I think, in earlier mid-May. Took a couple weeks off and then just started hauling ass in the studio on this new record and just finished it up.
Oh, and that's just so cool to see that. And I'm so glad to hear you say that it is a full-fledged band that the Beta Machine is, rather than just calling it a side project or whatever it is. I mean, as amazing as it is to be able to be in a situation with a Perfect Circle, it's great to be able to see that your mind is set on other creative aspects that you want to be able to focus on, and it's great to see what you've done already with the Beta Machine. I love the EP from start to finish, and it makes me very excited to see what a full-fledged album is going to sound like when that eventually comes out.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, you know, we're inspired by the people around us too, and you know, guys like Maynard, who have multiple projects going on, and they're all legitimate, and he puts his heart and soul into every one of them, and is never sitting still. We're like-minded people in that way, and you know, it's great to be a part of those things and learn. And even bands like Devo, where there aren't really side projects going on and stuff. You know, for me to play with them and learn from them, not only musically but about the music business and how it works, and to hear stories. I mean, they've been deep in the music business trenches for what, 40 years. So. Yeah. It's great to be a part of that stuff, and you learn how to, like I said, like put your best foot forward and make your band legitimate, and not just kind of throw material out into the wind and hope that it goes all right. I mean, there's so much more that goes into it, especially with today's music climate. It's now just as oversaturated as it's ever been, if not way more oversaturated. I mean, how do you keep people's attention? So you have to devise a pretty elaborate strategy to wrangle fans in and get them excited about what you're doing, at least just to get people to listen to one of your songs. We live in such an ADD society now. Just getting someone to check your band out for 30 seconds is quite a difficult task.
and with that, I mean, of course, just like you said, being able to have like the experience with Devo on your side now, with them being able to decades upon decades and seeing that the music evolution of the business side changing so much, and just like you said, there is a huge oversaturation of what's going on with music right now. I mean, whether it's just the ability to be able to check out more music, or there really is just that much more music out there that you can check out, it's really hard to grab attention. And it's just like with the beta machine, I mean, it really does seem like it did work out greatly so far with these situations of being able to open for a perfect circle and being able to keep that attention going on. So when the things eventually do come up with the first full-fledged album, I mean it sounds like you're going about it the right methodical way, and I can't wait to see what comes of it.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. It's going to be cool. It's going to be really cool. We're happy. I mean, we're way deep in it. It's just a matter of timing at this point. And then the hope that once it's out, it sees the light of day. And I mean, it's a totally different level, but the excitement that's around the new APC record and this new material and a slightly new direction and stuff, and the idea that the band can reach out to new fans that can jump on the ship and then check out all the other records and stuff. Like, we're hoping that, obviously in a much smaller way, we can do the same thing, through social media and just playing and opening slots with other bands that we enjoy listening to, would like to tour with, and hoping that their fans get there early, to check out the opener and dig what we're doing. We're in it, man. We're definitely kind of in the trenches and know what it takes and know how hard it's going to be, and how much time it might take, and the fact that there's obviously no guarantee whatsoever that we're going to be successful with our own endeavor. But the only way to do it, man, is just to kick as much ass as possible and just get yourself into it and work your ass off. That's it.
Oh, I absolutely couldn't agree more. And from the fan perspective, I really do hope it does work in your guys' favor. I mean, with the creativity that's going on with that EP, and just being able to see what you guys have done with that, and with the landscape of the way music is nowadays. I mean, there is, like you said, there is no guarantee that it is going to work out. But I mean, the fact that you guys have gotten along this far, I mean, even knowing if an EP was going to come out at the right time. And the fact that you guys were able to do that, get on a great touring cycle like you did last year, and being able to be so methodical about the way things are going forward. I mean, whether it does get to see the light of day or whatever the case is, I mean, it's just so great to see that it has come this far already, and all you can do is just work for it and just hope that things can come to pass where it can just get to that next level.
Certainly hoping. Just rock and roll and just give it your best shot, man.
Absolutely. But also with that, it's just being able to see the creative sides of what you're doing. I mean, whether you're playing with Devo, whether you're playing with a beta machine, whether you're playing with a perfect circle. I mean, just from that individual standpoint, I mean, the fact that you did work to get to this point, to be able to adapt to all these different situations, and rather than feeling like you're stuck in a gig that you just have to do just for the money, you are in these situations where you do get to explore all these different elements of bands that you love, the musical freedom that you get to enjoy that others don't necessarily get to do that. And it's great to be able to see that. I mean, from a musician and a fan aspect of it, and a fan of what you've done over the years. I mean, it's just so awesome to see the tenacity of what you've been able to accomplish and everything that's going to be go forward with it.
Thanks, man. I feel very fortunate. I do. From an artistic perspective, I really couldn't ask for much more at all. I feel super, super comfortable and at home with all the bands that I have the pleasure of playing with. And I've played in plenty of situations where I might not love the music or whatever, but I get to play with great people, or music's cool, the people might not be as cool. Like, every situation's different. Nothing is, perfect in any way, shape, or form. But, the bands I get to play with, man, I get to play with people that that I dig. It's so fulfilling artistically. It's just right down my alley. You know, it really is. Like the Beta Machine stuff is definitely a huge extension of Matt and I, and where we are with our writing and our playing styles, what we gravitate towards. And we're not, I mean, this new record, like I was saying, we explore some new territory, but we're not finished. I mean, we have constant dialogue about directions of songs, and you know, just you have to let things flow. You can't, or else you end up writing songs that might come out a bit contrived. But we have a constant dialogue about where we want to go, and you know, a style of a song or a vibe that we want to explore, whether it turns out to be a piece of shit song, and hey, we tried, or you know, like 3 songs were spawned from this one conversation. But ultimately, like Pussifer's a big extension of me artistically. You know, you can compare my drumming style and Beta Machine to Pussifer, you know, and that type of music. There's a kind of a control and beauty in the simplicity of it. I like to leave a lot of space musically, and both of those bands leaving space for swirling vocals and synths and guitars and laying off cymbals unless a part, a transition or the top of a section really calls for it. You know, just trying to be as musical as possible, and not interesting for the sake of being interesting and overcomplicated to try to impress drummers or musicians in general. It's just music first. Really, in every band I play in, I couldn't be happier playing in all these groups. You know, I really enjoy all of them.
And I think right there, I think that's a perfect way to be able to end this interview. I mean, hearing a great positive feeling of knowing that you are so happy, being able to be in these different kinds of situations, being able to explore all that creativity, all the sides of the Beta Machine that haven't even been explored upon yet in the recorded form, and seeing what comes of that in the future. And of course, getting back into what's coming up this Saturday, at least for me anyways, being able to see you live for the first time with Perfect Circle coming up for Northern Invasion in Somerset, Wisconsin. It was amazing to be able to hear your thoughts and insights into what it's like into being an active drummer in 2018, and just being able to hear all of these different sides. And I can't appreciate you enough for being able to take the time to be able to talk to me.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. I had a really good time talking with you too, and you know, thanks for your interest in what I do. That's flattering.